For thousands of years, the Horn of Africa has been home to some of the oldest continuously inhabited settlements on Earth. At the center of this ancient crossroads is Somalia, a land with a deep and complex story, one that stretches from the earliest Cushitic clans to the vast global diaspora of today. To understand Somalia is to understand resilience, adaptation, and the ability of a people to survive and reinvent themselves even when the state itself disappears around them. Somali society begins with ancient Cushitic-speaking groups who lived in the region for millennia. These include the Dir, Hawiye, Darod, Rahanwain, or Digil Miraful, and the Isaac, clans whose genealogies, oral traditions, and pastoral lifestyles remain central to Somali identity today. These clans organized themselves into extended family networks that governed marriage, property, dispute resolution, and political alliances. Long before the rise of formal states, Somalis lived under zir, a form of customary law that emphasized consensus, restitution, and communal responsibility. Echoes of this traditional legal system can still be heard in the works of Somali poets like Hadrawi, sometimes called the Somali Shakespeare, whose verses often draw on centuries-old traditions of wisdom and justice. Somalia's early development was influenced by repeated cultural convergence. Arab traders crossed the Red Sea, bringing Islam between the 7th and 10th centuries, which the Somali people adopted quickly and deeply. Persian merchants established coastal communities. Bantu-speaking groups settled in fertile southern regions, contributing agricultural knowledge and distinct cultural practices. All these influences blended into a unique identity: cosmopolitan on the coasts, pastoral in the interior, and tied to a sense of lineage that stretched back farther than memory. By the Middle Ages, Somalia was firmly part of the Indian Ocean trading world. Cities like Mogadishu, Zayla, Barawa, and Marka were not isolated ports. They were bustling commercial centers connected to Arabia, India, Persia, and even China. Ibn Battuta visited Mogadishu in the 1300s and wrote about its wealth, its beautiful fabrics, and its skilled merchants. Somali sultanates, like the Ajuran and the Adal, commanded large territories and developed complex administrative systems. The Adal Sultanate produced Ahmad ibn Ibrahim al-Ghazi, known as Ahmad Gurey, a military leader whose campaigns transformed the politics of the Horn of Africa. When we think of Somalia's golden age of trade and statecraft, it helps to remember modern Somalis who have carried this spirit of achievement into the contemporary world, such as world-class runner Abdi Bil or award-winning novelist Nuruddin Farah, who writes frequently about how history shapes identity. Colonialism arrived in the 19th century and reshaped everything. European powers divided Somali-inhabited lands among the British, Italians, French, Ethiopians, and Kenyans. This fragmentation carved deep lines through clan territories and complicated political loyalties. Tensions rose, but so did resistance. The most famous was the Dervish movement, led by Syed Muhammad Abdullah Hassan, who fought British and Ethiopian forces for over 20 years. His legacy remains powerful, much like the modern-day activism of leaders such as Asha Haji Elmi, who has spent decades promoting peace and women's rights in Somalia. Independence arrived in 1960, when British Somaliland and Italian Somaliland united to form the Somali Republic. Those early years were filled with optimism, elected governments, cultural revival, and growing national pride. Somalia produced remarkable artists, playwrights, and musicians, people like Singer Magul, or the composers of the Golden Era bands that blended Somali, Arabic, and Western influences into a unique sound. But internal tensions grew, and following the assassination of President Abdurrashid Sharmaka, the military took power in 1969 under General Mohammad Siad Barre. His government embarked on modernization campaigns and literacy drives, but it also suppressed political dissent, centralized power, and fueled underlying clan rivalries. Somalia's disastrous attempt to reclaim the Ogaden region from Ethiopia in 1977 damaged the economy and fractured Barre's alliances. By 1991, the dictatorship collapsed, and with it, the Somali state itself. What followed is one of the most significant and often misunderstood events in modern African history: the complete disappearance of a central government. After 1991, Somalia became a stateless society. For more than 2 decades, there was no functioning government, no national army, no police, no taxation system, and no central economic authority. Many observers expected total collapse, but what happened was far more complex. In the absence of a state, Somalis turned to the structures that had sustained them for centuries: clan networks, customary law, merchant systems, and local negotiation. These adaptations became a real-world example of how societies reorganize themselves when the formal state disappears. In many regions, traditional elders revived Zia, using customary courts to settle disputes, manage grazing land, regulate trade routes, and negotiate peace. Merchant networks, long accustomed to operating across borders, stepped in to fill roles that governments usually perform. Telecommunications companies emerged without state oversight, resulting in some of the lowest cost and most efficient mobile money systems in the world. Services like Hormuz Telecom in Somalia and Dahabshil in Somaliland operated with minimal regulation and became essential for business, remittances, and communication. Even without a central bank, financial flows continued. The Somali shilling survived purely through market forces, not government intervention. In the capital, Mogadishu, private security firms replaced police forces. In some areas, businesses collaborated to maintain basic utilities: wells, electricity lines, and sanitation systems. The diaspora sent billions of dollars each year, sustaining families and local economies. This ability to self-organize impressed many observers and became a case study in how human networks substitute for state structures during crises. But statelessness also had devastating consequences. Warlords gained power, extortion became widespread, and armed groups exploited the absence of authority. The rise of al-Shabaab fed on chaos and deepened instability. Without regulation, illegal dumping and overfishing by foreign vessels increased dramatically. In the early 2000s, some coastal communities formed militias to defend their waters. Over time, those militias transformed into heavily armed pirate groups that hijacked commercial ships passing through the Gulf of Aden. What began as self-defense eventually evolved into a multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise. At the same time, some regions demonstrated that functioning governance could emerge from the bottom up. Somaliland declared independence in 1991 and built a stable political system using a blend of modern institutions and traditional councils of elders. Puntland established its own administration. These regions became examples of how communities could rebuild even when the state collapsed, an unexpected form of political innovation in East Africa. As Somalia slowly reintroduced a formal government in the 2000s and 2010s, rebuilding remained slow and fragile. Mogadishu saw new development, markets reopened, and businesses flourished in certain districts. Yet al-Shabaab continued to launch attacks, and clan-based political competition made progress uneven. Still, the resilience of Somali society, its ability to rebuild markets, reopen schools, and create new opportunities remains one of the most extraordinary chapters in contemporary history. The Somali story, however, extends far beyond its borders. Civil war, famine, and economic collapse led millions of Somalis to migrate abroad. Large Somali diaspora communities emerged in Europe, the Middle East, Canada, and the United States. In the UK, Somalia-born athlete Mo Farah became one of the most decorated distance runners in history. In the US, Ilhan Omar became one of the first Somali-American members of Congress. In fashion and activism, Halima Aden brought global attention to the beauty of Somali culture. Yet the diaspora has also faced challenges. In Minnesota, home to the largest Somali community outside Africa, some individuals were involved in widely publicized cases of public benefits fraud. These incidents sparked political tension, media scrutiny, and debates over assimilation and community leadership. Similar controversies emerged in Sweden and Canada, often tied to social integration or youth gang activity. Issues not unique to Somalis, but part of broader challenges faced by immigrant communities. It's important to emphasize that these controversies reflect the actions of specific individuals, not the Somali population as a whole. In fact, diaspora members contribute significantly to global culture, local economies, and Somalia's reconstruction through remittances and civic engagement. When we look at Somalia today, we see a country at a crossroads, marked by conflict, but also by extraordinary capacity for adaptation. Its people have survived colonization, dictatorship, war, famine, and the disappearance of the state. Yet they continue to rebuild, innovate, and create. The spirit of resistance, embodied by Sayyid Muhammad Abdullah Hassan, the creativity preserved by Hadrawi and contemporary musicians, the athletic triumphs of Abdi Bil and Mo Farah, and the political visibility of Ilhan Omar all reflect a people who refuse to be defined solely by hardship. Somalia's history is long, layered, and often misrepresented. But when we step back and look at the full arc, from ancient clans to modern diaspora, from sultanates to statelessness, from warlordism to entrepreneurship, we see a story of remarkable endurance. The Somali people have repeatedly demonstrated the ability to reconstruct society not through imposed systems, but through their own cultural frameworks: negotiation, kinship, commerce, and adaptability. To understand Somalia is to understand that resilience. It is to see beyond stereotypes and appreciate the depth of a civilization thousands of years old. Somalia's future is still being written by students, scholars, entrepreneurs, activists, musicians, and families around the world who carry forward a heritage shaped by both struggle and strength. If you found this exploration valuable, be sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more deep historical narratives here on The Real History 101. Somalia's story is far from over, and it deserves to be understood in full.